Hello, I'm Ben and welcome to the third episode of Disc Video Discussion, the show where I choose a random disc from my collection to watch and review. Today I'm looking at a foreign copy of Cars 3 that I bought from a thrift store. I'm going to go over four things, the first being what language it is in. Second, the translation of the unknown language. Third, my thoughts before watching the film. And fourth, my thoughts after watching. Let's get to it. Just by looking at it, I can't confidently say what language is printed on this sleeve, and I don't know anybody that can translate it for me, so that leaves me with one option: Google Translate. Today's video is sponsored by Google Translate, the first place you shouldn't go when you need a completely accurate translation. This is not a paid promotion. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. Technically, I didn't use Google Translate, but I used the Google Lens app, which has the translate feature, and it auto-detected that our mystery language is Chinese. While doing some professional translations, I started off with the title and got some different results. These are the results. Cars 3 High Cars 3 Speed Challenge 3rd Edition. Cars 3 Speed Challenge 3rd Edition. RX Real Weight Total Mobilization 3 Speed Challenge. And my personal favorite, Racing Story 3 Speed Challenge 3rd Edition. Speaking of 3rd Edition, I just realized halfway through writing the script that I'm watching Cars 3 for DVD Episode 3. This episode is brought to you by the number 3. The translation on the back of the sleeve is as follows. It tells that the world champion Lightning McQueen has become a legend in the contemporary car world. He has won the Pistons Cup 5 times, but Charlie and the Demand are sold, new and gorgeous, and the advantage of Madara may be hugely prestigious. It is terrible. McQueen's self-confidence is gradually dissolving. In order to relink the chain, he is asked if Jujube is sweet. He has good understanding of lantern riddles, and she is full of energy hats in the Battle of the Four Petals. And in addition to the McGee film, there is something in the film. The role of the pedestal, the former Ramirez of Jacks of the Storm, is racing technology of Guangyuan country. Sounds interesting. If that wasn't enough, here are two more descriptions that I will not be reading. That description really didn't make much sense, and I purposely avoided reading the one that does, so I don't know exactly what to expect. I haven't looked at reviews either, but I'm pretty sure that when the movie first released, I didn't hear any good things about it. For some reason, on my copy of the movie, it could only go to the main menu and then it froze. So instead, I watched the movie on Disney Plus, and I thought it was enjoyable. I was never really a fan of the Cars movies, so I never really went out of my way to watch them, but I was surprised with this one, and I would consider going back and re-watching the other movies. That's all I have this time, so I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
devil, a poltergeist. Call it what you will, it lives.
Bloodbeat is a movie on drugs. Scratch that. Bloodbeat is what happens when you do a bunch of drugs and make a movie.
Spreading terror. Bloodbeat.
Hello, and welcome to our third episode of Jimmer Goes to the Movies. I am your host, Jimmer, and today I want to take a brief moment and talk about cult films. Now, when I say cult films, I don't mean devil-worshipping movies like Rosemary's Baby or The Omen, but rather films that have a small group of strongly dedicated fans. These films are both financial failures as well as critical failures. However, they have a small group of fans that absolutely love them. Great example, or maybe not so great, would be Event Horizon, which was the Paul W.S. Anderson film about a spaceship that opens a black hole and goes to hell. Failed miserably at the box office. Critics hated it, but it still has fans that argue it's a great movie, and they actually thoroughly enjoy it. I am not one of them. And today, we're talking about one of those types of films, and that movie is called Bloodbeat. Not a very good movie, and we'll get into some of the making behind the scenes stuff, which for me is the most fascinating part of the movie. The basic premise of the movie, a woman travels to her boyfriend's family's house for Christmas, but her body becomes possessed by the spirit of a Japanese samurai warrior and ends up going on a killing spree. That's the general plot synopsis. If you have to place it in a genre of film, it's your basic slasher film. In fact, the original idea for it was to be a slasher movie where the slasher uses a sword to kill people. But the director found an old samurai outfit at an antique shop in Chicago, and they said, all right, well, let's just have them wear a samurai suit, I guess. So that's how they got in there. There's a couple issues with the movie. The biggest issue being the audio. It's bad. It is not the fault of a bad film transfer, but rather when they made the movie, the audio was garbage. Another aspect you'll notice is half the movie is unseeable. And that's because they did not light their sets properly, which they didn't realize it was too dark until they finished 10 days of shooting. And they brought the film stock down to Chicago for it to be processed so they could see what they had. What they discovered was that their night scenes were a little too dark. So about halfway through the movie, they start putting more lights in to make things visible. So how about the special effects? Well, the gore effects are good, but I don't know whose idea it was to put this blue outline around the samurai for a majority of the movie, but it looks terrible, especially because the suit of armor looks great, but is hidden beneath this bluish shroud. I think the original idea was for him to look more like a ghost, so he's supposed to be transparent. But the French production studio that worked on the special effects for those scenes didn't do a good job, and they weren't getting paid much money either. So, why am I talking about this movie if just about everything about it is terrible? Well, I guess I should get into the director, who actually hails from France. He came to America because he knew a woman who had a home in America, and he stayed with her and her family. Then one day, while they were doing drugs, they decided, hey, let's make a movie. So they put the script together while on drugs, and that kind of helped explain a lot of the mystery surrounding the film. They were also on drugs while shooting the film, which also explains a lot of the things you see on screen. I think there's a credit for someone whose initials is LSD. But he was around 21 when he started shooting this film. He shot it for under $100,000, and yes, you can tell it's a low-budget movie, but I think that's what makes it so fascinating. There's a scene where an ambulance was supposed to pick a guy up, and they just had an actual ambulance show up. They went to some local guys who ran the ambulance and said, hey, can we borrow you for a shot? And they said, yeah, sure, we'll bring the ambulance and do that for you. And then they even asked the local sheriff if he wanted to be in it. And he said, yeah, I'll be in your movie, sure, why not? So they actually use real people, not actors, for some of the characters in the film. Two of the main characters in the movie are played by the man and woman who were living in the house they shot at. So that gives you an idea of the acting quality you'll see in the movie as well. I think the best way to describe the film is that it's a child's dream come true. And the director mentions this as well in his commentary. It's really a film that his younger self would have loved to see. Of course, it's an R-rated movie, so there's sex and violence in it. But the main point I want to get to, why I find this so fascinating, is that it was shot here in rural Wisconsin near Spring Green, Wisconsin. In fact, I think the director does a great job capturing the look of rural Wisconsin. If I had to describe what my vision of Wisconsin is, it would be just before the snow falls or after the snow melts, the trees stripped bare of their leaves, desaturated colors, and cold. And the director captures that really well. In fact, I think he could have made a much better film if he had made a documentary about his experiences in Wisconsin. So, for the question, would I recommend the movie? No, I would not. It has a little place in my heart because it was shot entirely in Wisconsin. So I would recommend you check out the Blu-ray. But going back to my discussion on cult films real quick, for me, what makes a cult film so endearing are the stories of how they're made. And that's what fascinates me about Bloodbeat. A story of a guy who came from France to Wisconsin and decides to make a movie at the age of 21, even though he's never made a film in an environment that he finds very strange while on drugs, is fascinating. So I'd recommend you check out the Blu-ray special features. This Blu-ray was released by this episode's sponsor, Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome is an American home distribution company which specializes in protecting and preserving genre films. They have a large library of genre and cult films, including The Beastmaster. They actually fully restored Tammy and the T-Rex, including the original gore cut, which was thought to be lost, so they're clearly doing God's work. And also Champagne and Bullets, also known as Road to Revenge, also known as Get-Even. Yes, it's spelt without a space, which we have a clip of for you.
I got to get to you, but I get pushed aside, 'cause everybody's doing the shimmy and the slide. Oh, you're on fire when I grab you by the hand. Your waist is moving with the rhythm of the band. I swell up as you take me for a ride. Come on, pretty baby, let's do the shimmy slide.
So be sure to check them out at vinegarsyndrome.com on November 26th for their Black Friday sale, and we will see you next time.
Hello, my name is Brody Liberty, and I'm coming at you live from the White Void in the basement of NWTC for Console Chatting. In this episode, we are going to be mixing things up and be talking about the Wii U, but not my history with the console. First, though, we are still going to talk about the Wii U's history. The Wii U was designed by Nintendo Entertainment and was released in North America on November 8th, 2012, being the successor to the Wii. It was discontinued on January 31st, 2017, being succeeded by the Switch, giving it a lifespan of only 5 years. It sold 13.56 million units worldwide in that time, and it has, according to Wikipedia, 783 games. Despite the sales, the Wii U is considered a failure, especially when you put its sales next to the 101.63 million consoles sold for the Wii, its predecessor, and the current 92.87 million consoles shipped for the Switch as of September 30th, 2022. Or 2021, sorry. It's not 2022 yet. The Wii U was the first home console I truly owned, as I got it as a Christmas present, and I loved it. This is why I've decided to take the time NWTC has given me to defend this poor console. Many disrespect this poor console because, but I am here to say it is not the console's fault, but Nintendo's for the Wii U's failure. First, though, I should explain what is the problem with the Wii U. So, I took directly from Wikipedia. Response to the Wii U was mixed. It was praised for its innovative gameplay controller. It improved the online functionality over the Wii and backwards compatibility with the Wii software and peripherals. And its price was also praised. There we go. However, it was criticized for its user interface and functionality and the gamepad's short battery life. It had low sales, primarily credit to a weak lineup of launch games, limited third-party support, and poor marketing, including a lack of distinction, the unique functionality of the gamepad from just being a tablet for the Wii. Now, that did point out a lot of good points about why the Wii U failed, but did you notice something with those points? Only one had anything to do with the console itself. A weak lineup of launch games, limited third-party support, and poor marketing. How does that at all make it the box's fault? The only thing that is truly wrong with the Wii U is its gamepad, which, yeah, I'll say it's a gimmick and a poor one at that, but not because it's a bad idea. No, because the problem with the gamepad is the same problem the DS has faced all of its life. Wow. This thing right here, the touchscreen. No one knows how to use it. Even Nintendo themselves doesn't know how to use it. Like, there we go. Okay, sorry. Most turn it into information or just another screen. And that's not interesting. It's not interactive. It puts to shame what it means to have a touchscreen. I grew up in the years during the rise of touchscreens, in which most of the time when you came across the screen, you had to guess whether it was a touchscreen or not. I learned why touchscreens were important during that time, and it's such a big deal. They made dealing with the world of technology easier and can do things no mouse or keyboard can, or even a controller. But no, the Wii U and the DS, this great progress of humanity is used for what? Moving around menus, scrolling a map, maybe a camera control if you're lucky. Like in my experience, I've found only two third-party games that use touch controls that I find fun and fluid. Star Wars The Force Unleashed for the DS, and then Eco Creatures Save the Forest, also for the DS. Star Wars uses the touch controls for combat and making combos and some QuickTime events, while Eco Creatures uses the controls for your army of tiny forest animals, a la Pikmin. These consoles have 4,221 games to their names. The DS has 2,120 games, and the 3DS has 1,373 games. And while I've not played all of them, I'm sure the majority of the games don't give the touch controls justice. Most of the main Nintendo titles do, at the very least, have some interesting mini-games with the touchscreen, but they also just use it as a menu or a spot to hold items. Kirby Triple Deluxe and Kirby Planet Robobot. So what I'm saying is nothing at all. But I'm saying that the reason the console failed is it's just too cool, and people don't know how to deal with that. Not every game needs touch controls, but in a market where only 1/3 of the console uses touch controls, it makes sense that third-party games don't have anything for it. I mean, while the Wii was a success but it took a couple of years for the third parties to come up with motion controls that were eventually able to move onto the PS4, sorta. Like the Wii U is a fantastic system, though, and it showed a lot was learned from the Wii. You know, with Wii Motion Plus being built into the new controllers for the Wii U, it's motion games that went above and beyond what the Wii could do. The gamepad, being a big screen, isn't as clunky of a controller as you might think it is, and it works quite well. I also worked, as I said, It also worked, as I said previously, can be used as a screen, allowing the user to play without a TV. It even has its own motion bar, so you could play with a Wii controller just on this. No TV needed. And while the launch titles may have lacked, the Wii U has some of the best Nintendo titles, and some of them are so good they were ported over to the Switch. I'm talking about Mario Kart 8, Pikmin 3, Super Mario 3D World, Toad Treasure Tracker, and some of them even got a sequel like Super Mario Maker and Splatoon. Like, the Switch isn't a bad system. Wait, why did I say the Switch? No, yeah, the Wii U isn't a bad system. It suffers from the narrow minds of the third parties and Nintendo's obsession with innovation without supporting those third parties. Like, without a good collection of third-party games, the Wii U could never truly take off and was left in the dust by the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Like, that's why today my sponsor is the Wii U. To be clear, it's just the system, not Nintendo. I'm urging you, if you love Nintendo games, then give this console another chance at life. Head to your local game store and pick it up. Due to its shortcoming, it's not all that expensive, with some being sold just for $100, which compared to the fact that the other consoles in its generation are still being sold for around $400. It is definitely a deal. Take some time, even if you're not in the market for a console, to at the very least look around and see the cool Wii U games there are. You know, it's got Smash 4, Paper Mario Color Splash, Pokken Tournament, Star Fox Zero. And also thanks to its backwards compatibility, you can also play all of the 1,596 Wii games on it, and you can play them with the Wii Motion Plus, giving you better control over the motion controls. So please, if you can, give this console another chance. It really genuinely deserves it. But before we end today's program, I have one last thing I want to talk about. The Switch. The current Nintendo console that has outshined and outperformed the Wii U. Notice anything similar about its design? Anything looks similar here? Like, it's definitely sleeker. It's definitely not as kind of clunky as the Wii U gamepad is, but it's the Wii U, just better. And it goes as a great example to show that while Nintendo never appears to listen, they do, and they take notes. The Switch is one of their best consoles to date, and it even works well with third parties. Well, somewhat, if you've ever listened to any of the music that comes out of the tiny cartridges, you know that doesn't work the greatest. The Switch takes what Nintendo failed to do with the Wii U and makes it work. So if you still think the Wii U failed as a console, then I have to ask, why did the Switch succeed? Was it muddled with a weak lineup of start games, limited third-party support, and poor marketing? No, it wasn't. But thank you all for tuning in, and see you next time for the final episode of Console Chatting.
Hi there. Nice to see you again, and welcome back to PA Nation. I hope the overview last week got you ready and excited to learn more. Learn more about what it takes to be a production assistant, that is. In today's episode, we'll dive right into things. Before we get started, I'd like to begin today's episode with a message from our sponsor, HelloFresh. Aren't you sick and tired of going through all the effort of figuring out what to eat every single day? I don't know about you, but I hate the process of going to the grocery store, trying to figure out what ingredients I'm going to need to make the one specific meal, then going home and attempting to cook the whole thing without messing anything up. I love going out to eat, but that's also very expensive. And let's be real, nothing's better than a home-cooked meal. Thankfully, with HelloFresh, the process couldn't be more simple. HelloFresh is a fresh food subscription company that delivers weekly, pre-portioned ingredients with delicious recipes straight to your doorstep. Save time and money. Choose from over 50 menu options and food items each week, crafted and curated by professional chefs. Use my promo code, NATEDOG, and receive your first 14 meals absolutely free. Getting your first PA gig might be a bit tricky since production companies often look for experienced workers. However, everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves and their production skills. Ultimately, it's the first step in working your way up in the film industry, and it's generally the first position everyone starts off with. There are several ways to get your foot in the door. As mentioned in our last episode, you can create profiles on specific websites to advertise yourself as a PA. Feel free to check out Staff Me Up, Mandy's, Production Hub, and even Craigslist. There are even some Facebook sites or Facebook groups that you can follow to find more work. When I started working on productions, my plan was to reach out to production companies in the Green Bay area to see if they were willing to be interviewed for learning purposes. After my first call, I was invited to a studio where I asked all sorts of questions and presented my portfolio of past video projects. Because this took place in the wintertime, there weren't many productions taking place until early spring. He offered to teach me a few things a couple times a month so I could take notes and help him around the studio. After showing him my passion to work my way into the film industry, he offered to pitch my name around for upcoming shoots that he was involved in. I landed my first gig as a PA for a Bell & Health commercial, and that's where it all began. At this point, I've worked on 4 commercials, 2 for Bell & Health, 1 for NWTC, and 1 for Cellcom. I was also hired as a PA for a documentary segment on Monday Night Football that was presented by ESPN, and a feature film called God Loves the Green Bay Packers, which is expected to be released in either June or July of next year. After you line up your first gig, you need to make sure you're ready for all that's ahead. Before you leave the house, make sure to have everything you need. Always be prepared. It's important to wear comfortable shoes, don't focus on fashion, wear casual clothing, and leave the high heels at home. Wear boots if you're scheduled to work outdoors in rainy or snowy weather, and bundle up for those cold days during the fall and winter seasons. It's very important to wear a belt. You will have a walkie strapped to your side at all times, so it'll be held more securely if you have a belt around your waist. You will also be less likely to pants yourself by accident. While working on set, it's important to bring specific items with you and have them nearby at all times. You can keep these items in a backpack or even in a fanny pack. Some can even be carried in your pockets. Carrying a multi-tool might come in handy at some point on set. This tool is not mandatory, but you might avoid having to ask for one from G&E if something comes up. For example, while I was working as a PA for the feature film I was talking about, one of our pop-up tents was missing a pull tab for expanding and collapsing the tent. In order to disassemble the pop-up at the end of the day, We needed pliers to pull out the metal spring closest to the top that held the tent openly spread out. Thankfully, we came prepared and handled things without having to ask for assistance. In addition, it's essential to bring a notepad and pens to write things down, such as lunch orders or reminders for yourself and others. You can also use it to take notes when you come across appropriate times to ask crew questions about things like how they got involved in the industry and how they worked their way up. Carry a Sharpie for labeling things on paper tape or putting initials on water bottles when you hand them out during cuts. Make sure to bring highlighters so you can mark up receipts. Whenever you spend money on production, even if it's with a credit card that they give you, keep the receipt and highlight the date and total before handing it in to the higher-ups. If they ask you to use your own money, keep a record of each purchase to add to your invoice. Your invoice is your ticket to getting paid, so we'll make sure to go more in depth on that before this series is over. Make sure to take a picture of all receipts so you have a backup in case it gets lost. You will definitely want to bring a charging cord with you and a portable charger, since you will need a charged phone at all times. If your phone dies, you will have no way to contact the team if you're away from set. Also, remember to bring a headlamp for nighttime, a pair of work gloves, a pocket knife or maybe a box cutter for breaking down or opening boxes, and have an extra pair of socks. Another thing you'll want to get in the habit of keeping is at least 2 hot bricks strapped to your belt in case somebody's walkie dies. A hot brick is a term used to describe fully charged walkie batteries. Cold bricks are dead batteries. Store the rest of the hot bricks by clipping them to the outer edge of a designated bucket that you can keep near Video Village. Video Village is where monitors and chairs are placed so important crew members can observe what's happening live on camera and make needed adjustments for best results. When people exchange bricks for a fresh one, they will generally toss the cold bricks in the center of the bucket. Every so often, check for cold bricks so they can be put back on the charging station. Speaking of walkies, it's important to know walkie etiquette and understand on-set lingo. There are specific sayings that are short and to the point that allow crew to communicate quickly and efficiently. Let's take a look and see how 2 crew members might talk to one another using walkies while they're on set.
It's always important to carry a walkie with you while you're on set. This will be your key to communicating with other crew members. Now when you first get to set, make sure you're set to channel 1. This is the production channel. After you strap it to your side, if you happen to have a surveillance or if you're given one, drop the wire down the back of your shirt, clip it to the edge of your collar, and loop the earpiece around and in your ear, and then make sure to have the mic attached to the front of your collar so it's easily accessible. After you're all set up, we're going to do a walkie check just to make sure everything's working. Walkie check.
That's a good check there, bud.
When trying to get in touch with a specific crew member, you would say, Nathan for Jeffrey.
Go for Jeffrey.
What's your 20? This means what's your location?
By Crafty.
If it's a lengthy conversation, take it to channel 2 to keep channel 1 open for calls. Switch to 2.
Switching. On 2.
Can you fly in a hot brick to Brian? He keeps cutting out. And when you're done, meet me by Video Village. I'm going to have you do a water pass.
Copy that, I'm flying in.
Flying in means bringing something or someone to set at a very quick pace. If you're ever unsure if the team is rolling, blow twice into the mic. If someone blows twice back, that means they're rolling. If the team's not rolling, someone will tell you, we're not rolling. On to our next example. Go for costumes. Costumes, do you copy? Eyes on costumes.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Costumes is at base camp.
Can you make sure their walkie's working? I think they might need a hot brick.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Nathan for Jeffrey.
10-1, stand by for Jeffrey.
10-1 either means you're using the bathroom or you need to step away momentarily to use the bathroom. Now, technically, 10-1 means you have to pee, and 10-2 means you have to poop. But it's not necessary to let everyone know that you have to drop a deuce. In addition, stand by means you're too busy to respond. But we'll go on with this example. Standing by.
Okay, go for Jeffrey.
Can you switch to 2?
Switching. On 2.
We'll be breaking for lunch as soon as they call cut. Can you make sure to spin the channels when they do?
Copy that.
During this time, you'll switch to each channel being used by a specific department, and you'll tell them it's time to eat. And that's a cut, everyone. Lunch for an hour. Now, where is that pizza?
Spinning the channels. Yeah, lunch for an hour. Be back at 1:05. Lunch for an hour. Be back at 1:05. Lunch for an hour. Be back at 1:05. Bet. I have to eat some pizza.
Welcome back. I hope you learned a little more about walkie communication through the previous examples. By limiting communication, everything said is straight to the point, so no one is having full conversations while calls need to be made, such as when the team is rolling or when they yell cut. With this information overload, you might be wondering, who do you ask if you have questions about what needs to be done? Next, we will be covering who is your boss. Generally, you will report to one of 3 crew members: producers, assistant directors, or the key PA if there happen to be several production assistants on set. These people will most likely have answers if you're ever unsure of what to do next. Don't be afraid to ask for directions. It's better to ask for help than to stand around wondering what you should be doing at that moment in time. People won't be discouraging, and always remember, you're part of a team that works together. Everything you can help out with creates less stress for the person in charge of making sure that all the necessary tasks are completed. The ADs and other crew will love and appreciate you for stepping up. If there's extra time available, offer to help other departments. Even if they have things handled, they will be grateful that you offered. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you next week when we go more in depth on setting up for the day, knowing when and how to eat, safety protocols, making runs, and locking it up on lockups. Stay tuned. This is Nathan, signing off.